Stellenbosch coach Steve Barker confirmed that the reason why Darryl Macheke and Kgaugelo Sekgotha were released from Stellenbosch is because of their disciplinary issues. And this, my friends, actually shows us and highlights a problem that Kaizer Chiefs has, because these two guys are former Kaizer Chiefs players, and these two guys, especially Darryl Macheke, when he got to Stellenbosch, he was playing very well. He even got a Man of the Match award performance, and it was clear that he's now becoming an integral part of their squad. But all of a sudden, he gets fired. And what makes this situation worse is that he didn't just get fired, but according to Steve Barker, he's saying that at first you look at the players, you try to give them as much help as you can give them, but there comes a point where you're like, this is not working, and you end up firing them, which tells you that this thing was a thing that was continuous, because apparently the breaking point was when Darryl Macheke told the coach that he has favorites, and then that did not sit well with the coach. Sekgotha were not really told what happened, but I'm guessing it was also discipline. What disciplinary problems he could have had? Probably alcohol. And we've had similar problems with Kaizer Chiefs. Like just this season, club captain Nomtantsane were suspended because of the same thing. And people were saying, Chiefs, why are they only suspending Ukune? Because we know that there are other players who drink in the team and they are not being suspended. But right there, my friends, the moment you say there are other players who are also doing the same thing and they are not getting suspended, you are not actually making Ukune Nomtantsane any less guilty, but you are just pointing out that bonke baningi bayaphuza. It's not just two, but it's more than that, and it adds to the fact that other players who did it in excess, like Abotum Zuma, they ended up being fired. And you look at what Ukados was telling us, and people insulted him. People drink in the team, they do whatever they want. It's clear that this thing is happening, and when they go and do it in other clubs, it's not tolerated. And you clearly see that this thing is not only pointing out to Guti, our players at Kaizer Chiefs are doing whatever they want, but it things like weight gain as well that we have talked about. All of those things are tolerated at Chiefs, and it's problematic. And other serious teams who are really serious about football and not about their brand, they are not just trying to hide these things away. If you misbehave, you get fired. We were just talking about Brendan Peterson. With Brendan Peterson, he was told that he shouldn't shout at the coach in public. Well, that's kind of something that was implied, because they said there are things that are better done outside of the public eye. And saying that implies that, you can be disrespectful as long as you don't do it in front of 90,000 people watching. But that's not the point. The point that I'm trying to make here is that there's a lot of secrecy. There's a lot of things that are not going right at Kaizer Chiefs. But since they own the image rights, since obviously some players signed non-disclosure agreements, which they won't reveal certain things that are happening at the club, then it's clear that there are a lot of things that are being stepped on, a lot of things that are being hidden, that are actually happening at Kaizer Chiefs. And Yabona, what this thing tells us is the fact that there is not only a situation at Kaizer Chiefs of players are ill-disciplined and Chiefs tries to discipline them from time to time, like Abokune, like Abumtantsane, but it seems like there's tolerance, because this nonsense has been going on for way too long. Like if we're talking about in 2019-2020 season, Abo Matoho and Abokune were going out clubbing in the middle of the pandemic while we were trying to win the league. The fact that nonsense was happening back then and Ukune still did it even in 2023, it's telling you that there is a long culture of just doing whatever that you want. Because I feel like we're at a point where our team is not only seeing this nonsense that is happening, but they are tolerating it. And you tolerate nonsense like that for two reasons. The first one is the fact that, well, their status is so high and you feel like you can't do better. For example, you have Ukune and you look around and you think, we can't really find another goalkeeper like Ukune. He's one of the best in South Africa. Or you are thinking to yourself, then who are we going to buy a player of that profile? And you also don't want to upset the fans. But how are you going to upset the fans by instilling discipline in everyone? Because also, if you're going to fire Utumsani Zuma for drinking and then not fire Okune for doing the same thing, isn't that applying as a double standard? You get what I'm saying? So to me, it seems like different players have different amount of power in the team. We even see with the selection, certain players get selected whether they're out of form or in form. Certain players get dropped like Abotuba even if they just scored a goal. So to me, it says that this thing Yoguta Badlali, they have a certain power in the team. That tells you Uguti, that's obviously going to affect how they are disciplined. That's obviously going to affect how they are dealt with. Because if Usizo Titina, for example, we are going to allow one player to drink and another not to drink. We are going to suspend one player for drinking and not suspend the other for drinking. What does that say to you? And secondly, the reason why nonsense like this continues happening in a big club like Kaizer Chiefs is because of culpability. What do I mean by culpability? You know, Guti, if wena uphuzana labadlali, how are you going to suspend them if kungochombako? Because Ukune, it's understandable. He's been a Chiefs, for example. I'm using him because he's the example. And I know Ukune fans will say, you hate Ukune Mpilo, we know you. But if you think about it, if I'm a friend with a sporting director, I'm making it as an example. I'm so close to sporting director, or I make friends with Ukemi Somtaung, the Chiefs. Do you think that they will be harsh to me? If Ungpuza no Kemiso, Bazong punish, Bengpuza no Kemiso nje. I'm just making an example. I don't drink, by the way. But what I'm trying to make is to say is, if Nizopuza Nabadlal as a management, then it's like, yeah, it's open season. Anyone can drink. And someone I know will say, no, Mpilo, but these people are professional players. So this thing is not the same. These are working office jobs, but these ones are working as footballers. But then I'm saying to you, why would you allow a footballer who has to go out 3 days from now and play, or even 2 days from Saturday? Let's say it's Thursday, you're drinking with them and they're playing on Saturday. How are they going to be fit on Sunday? And then you're looking like this, as if now you are said all of a sudden. How did you trust the player you were drinking with to go out and perform? So some of these things, it's not just about player power, but it's also about player influence and proximity to the management. And the closer you are to the management, the more things you can get away with that are not right. And also, if the management are doing things any way they want, that's also gonna, I've been saying this word a lot this week, funnel down. All these things, if they're allowed at the top, they are going to go down. And everyone, I tell you, will continue doing these things. And you can clearly see how far down we've fallen, because Abo Stellenbosch would rather lose a player who was potentially replacing Usbong Senimtetwa in Daryl Macheke, a player who was potentially going to replace Mendieta. I know Mendieta played as a 10 at times, but also he did play as a winger. In Sehota, got rid of experience, players that they got for free, because they take football seriously. There is no one who's bigger than the club. There is no one who's closer to the management than everyone else. If we're better, we are better, and that's the bottom line. Kantitina, as fans, we are also helping this narrative, because some of us, if we're being honest, I know some people will already comment and say, yeah, we know that the colored players drank and they were not punished. But now you are already causing segregation, which all colors are treated better than black people, and perpetuating things that don't exist. Because we know, Guti, before even we talk about colors or white people or whatnot, the point is, it doesn't matter whether you are black, white or green. Everyone must be equal regardless of their race. And at Chiefs, it's not even about that. It's just about who's closer to the management and not necessarily their race. Because if we're going to talk about Ukune, you're going to say, oh, Ukune was suspended, but the colored players were not suspended. Where is your proof? Besides, Ukune also did the same things back in 2020, but it was not suspended. So what was that? Were the colored players also drinking at the time? No. They were playing at Stellenbosch, they were playing at Sekokune, wherever. Ukuthi nathi as fans, we make matters worse because we want to attack Umart, we want to attack Dupree, we want to attack Frosler, we want to attack Solomons. What do all those players have in common? They are colored. And now you are just sidelining them and making it seem like they are the ones who are a problem. I'm saying this because it genuinely concerns me how much people will say things like that. And I'm like, when did this thing become about race all of a sudden? Because we clearly see that this thing, for a very long time, we've had a lot of black players, and yet even those black players were not treated equally. So it's clear that this is not about race. It's just about how close you are to the management and what is on your contract, and nothing to do with your race. Because if this had to do with a race, then Bradley Cross, he went to Chiefs, played as a left back in his trials. He should have been taken. He wasn't. Pella, if we are taking white people as superior, then that logic would dictate that any white person who's ever come to Chiefs should get their trials. So let's stop making these things about race and actually just look at what is actually happening with the management. Because the more we start including race in these things that have nothing to do with race, then we are not addressing the actual problem, which is at times about Johnson bane favoritism. For example, even Johnson himself, he's a colored coach, but he plays Ukunika, who is black, ahead of Usolomons, despite the fact that Usolomons is a better player. So are you gonna tell me that he's racist towards coloreds now? Egbene colored. Come on, guys. This has nothing to do with race and more just to do with the coaches, with their perception, and the management with their perception, what's on the contract, and how close they are to these players. And because of that, these problems continue at Kaizer Chiefs. But Wena, what do you think? Do you think that Kaizer Chiefs have lost their identity, or it's just a rough patch? We'll bounce back. Let me know down in the comment section below, and to do like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remember, equals alpelumoy.